Okay, my name is Gerda Fulton. I was born in Germany and I lived there until I was about 19 years old, and then I came to this country. I didn't start off in Glasgow, but I ended up in Glasgow with friends of mine. And I've lived there since 1939. Every 4 weeks they boycotted Jewish shops. The Nazis stood in, one of them usually, one or two of them stood in front of the shop, and they intimidated shoppers and said, "Don't go in there, this is a Jewish shop." And they very often also smashed the windows. And then notices were being put up in public places forbidding Jews to enter. That was theaters, cafes, restaurants, swimming pools, etc., etc. You weren't allowed there. It said, "Jews and dogs are strictly forbidden to enter." And in some places it just said, "Jews keep out." And other things were torchlight processions through the streets where they sung Nazi songs. Amongst other was one particular song which was very frightening for us Jews. It was a song which said, "When the Jewish blood runs off the knife, everything goes so much better." I know of one particular case where there was a little Jewish woman who had lost her husband. She was a widow, and her son was a very mild character, and he was devoted to his mother. When we went to synagogue on a high festival, he always came up and brought her flowers and things like that. He was a very nice chap. They took him away, and then she had word that he was shot. The excuse was that it was trying to escape, but nobody believes that. They just shot these people. The Nazis ruled through fear and intimidation. There's one example, for instance. We lived in a flat, in a building with a flat, and my little brother was friendly with the kids upstairs. There were two little children, a little girl and a little boy, and they were in each other's houses and they played together. Until one day the mother came down to my mother crying and saying that her son, who was then about 10 years old, had to join the Hitler Youth. And it wouldn't do for him to have Jewish friends. That was dangerous, so that friendship had to stop. And these kids were 5 or 6 years and 10 years old. So you can imagine, I mean, it wasn't adults who could think for themselves or anything like that. My father was a soldier in the First World War, and he was injured. He had medals to prove that he was in the war and that he did it. And he was quite sure that his loyalty to his fatherland would count for something. He was actually very proud to be a German father. But it didn't turn out that way. He was very proud. He not only was he fighting in the First World War, he also had a comrade with whom he went all through the war, through thick and thin. And this comrade lived in our town as well, and once a year at Christmas time, he invited all our family to his house, and we admired his magnificent Christmas tree. It was really beautiful from floor right up to the ceiling. And we had tea with them. Now, the last time we were there, this comrade took my father to one side and told him that he was afraid that this was the last time we could come to see him. We would be invited, because he had a son-in-law who was in the Nazi party, and it would be too dangerous for them to be associated with Jews. Very sorry and all that, but. And that was the end of this friendship. They ransacked homes, Jewish homes, and took all males over 18 to the concentration camp. Now, I wasn't at home at that time. I was told afterwards. I was also told they didn't take my father. My father was a teacher, and he was told to stay at home at first. Then he phoned up and he says, "What should I do?" And he was told to go to the school and take all the seats and benches out of the classrooms, because there would be people, the people that were going to concentration camps, they would be billeted in there until they were being transported away. So my father did that, and while he was away, the Nazis came to my parents' house, and my mother opened the door, and they came in, and they looked around and asked all sorts of various questions. And where is the man of the house? And my mother told me he was away. He had been told to go to the school. So they went away again. And then when my father came home for his dinner, they came back. And my mother, and they said, "Oh, this man." My mother was very quick off the mark, and she said, "That's all right, they have been here already." And they went away and left my father. For some reason or other, he did not get taken away that time. He was very, very lucky. My parents lived in a flat, very comfortable, but they were taken out of the flat, and I suppose all their belongings confiscated. They were put into one room with two other families prior to be taken to a concentration camp. They had my father's oldest sister, my aunt, lived with them, and she was taken to an old age home and also taken to the concentration camp in Auschwitz. My mother had a very close friend from very early childhood into adulthood. They were inseparable, until she one day got a letter from that woman to say that her husband was in the party, Nazi party, and she admired Hitler greatly. She had heard him speak and admired him. She was smitten by him. And for that reason, she had to stop being friendly with my mother, and my mother was very, very deeply hurt, as you can imagine. My most vivid memory, I have got many memories from that time and altogether. The most vivid memory, I suppose, is being at the train station, saying goodbye to my parents and my young brother, seeing my parents cry because I was leaving and not knowing whether we would ever see each other again. Of course, at that time, nobody realized that there would be such a Holocaust. Anybody imperfect had to be eliminated. And so they exterminated really mentally sick people that were in hospitals. They just got rid of them, they didn't want them. My last message would be to any viewers, to any people now, learn to live and let live. Tolerance of people that have different religion and different beliefs, have different habits, come from different environments, and not to think that you are so much better than anyone else, that you can trample on them and even kill them. And don't be a racist.